Hello and welcome again to investingsuccess.ca and another of our short videos in which we take a look at human emotion, astrology, and the financial markets. In a recent edition of my e-alert, as a matter of fact the edition I published on the 25th of April, I took a look at Canadian dollar futures. And I showed my subscribers how things like Jupiter harmonic lines, as well as planetary declination of orbital bodies such as the Sun and Venus can be used as very valuable tools for navigating twists and turns and price trends on Canadian dollar futures. So to illustrate further, consider the chart that you're looking at on your screen right now. This is a monthly nearest chart for Canadian dollar futures, and I've taken it all the way back to 2005. Now, starting in 2008, I've used my massive, large spreadsheet that I've created, and I've applied the Jupiter harmonic lines to the chart. And these lines have been calculated using the methodology outlined by Fabio Areste in his very well-written book, Quantum Trading. And what you can see from this chart is, yes, in fact, the Jupiter harmonic lines correlate extremely well to significant highs and lows that the Canadian dollar has made since 2008. I want to point out further that if you take a look at the 2009 lows and the rally that ensued into the middle of 2011, measure that distance, and what you'll notice is that we have now retraced 0.618, a Fibonacci retracement of that rally on the Canadian dollar. In all likelihood, we have probably seen the bottom in the Canadian dollar for now. If the Canadian economy deteriorates any further, and the economic data is definitely showing that it is wanting to slow, watch this 618 retracement level, because it could become very critical. And in the next month or so, if price takes out that 618 retracement, then you're going to want to start looking for a Fibonacci 0.786 retracement, and you're going to want to start looking for that to occur in concert with a Jupiter harmonic line. Now let's zoom in a little bit closer and look at a shorter time frame. The chart you're looking at this time on your chart is a weekly nearest chart of Canadian dollar futures, and what I've overlaid on this particular chart are what I call declination events. And for those of you that have been following my blogs and my various other writings, or perhaps have bought my books, you'll know that I do talk a lot about declination. And in particular on the Canadian dollar, what I'm seeing is that at those times when Venus makes its maximum or minimum declinations, and at those times when the Sun makes minimum, maximum declinations, and for that matter, when Venus tends to also pass through 0 degrees of declination, you will quite often see a very tight correlation to a short-term change in trend. This chart goes back all the way to July 2011, and if you study the various points that I've got denoted on the chart, I think you'll agree that Venus and Sun declination occurrences are a very powerful tool that a person can take full and fair advantage of when trying to assess whether or not there's going to be a change of trend or a change of sentiment in the Canadian dollar. And lastly, there's one more Astro technique that a person needs to be aware of when navigating the Canadian dollar, and that is those times when heliocentric Mercury and Saturn make 0 or 90 degree hard aspects to one another. On this daily chart of June Canadian dollar futures, which goes back to late 2013, I've marked on the chart for you the 90 and 0 degree aspects between heliocentric Mercury and Saturn. And I think the argument can be made that there is a very decent correlation between these hard aspects and changes in trend on the Canadian dollar. Now, some of these trend changes tend to be shorter in nature, but some of them open the door to more significant moves. You'll also notice on the right-hand side of this chart that recently the Canadian dollar has had a very interesting little upsurge. We can attribute that to the fact that recently Venus went through its 0 degree point on declination, and Venus is now on its way to its maximum declination in July. And as Venus passed through 0 degrees of declination, look what happened. Price action on the Canadian dollar got above the Jupiter harmonic line, and it was proceeding along very nicely, and in fact took out the high that it made in April. So that's all good. However, look what happened as of last Friday. Canadian dollar ran headlong into literally a brick wall, a hard aspect between heliocentric Mercury and Saturn. Now, obviously, this hard aspect agitated human emotion towards the Canadian dollar, and in fact, last Friday, the Canadian government released the most recent employment statistics for the Canadian economy, and believe me, they were not very good at all. And so, human emotion was agitated at the time with this heliocentric hard aspect. The news was not well received, and it looks now as though the Canadian dollar may have hit some sort of an interim little top, and from here we could quite likely drift lower. The first week of June is going to give us another heliocentric Mercury-Saturn hard aspect to watch for, and Venus will ultimately reach its maximum in declination during July. And so the next 6-8 weeks is going to be very, very interesting for the Canadian dollar to see if, in fact, it is going to continue and try to get back to parity with the U.S. dollar, or whether, in fact, it's going to drift even lower and potentially challenge the 0.61 retracement, which earlier in this video I had said was likely the bottom. And with that, let me bring this video to a conclusion by saying that when it comes to the Canadian dollar futures, if a person uses Jupiter harmonic lines as calculated using the Fabio Arreste method as outlined in Quantum Trading, his very well written book, use those in concert with changes in declination on Venus and on the Sun, and combine those with your standard chart moving averages and other technical indicators, but also the heliocentric Mercury and Saturn 0 and 90 degree hard aspects. You bring all of that together, and you can certainly give yourself a very powerful little toolbox of things to use to help you navigate your way through the twists and turns that are the Canadian dollar futures. Thanks for watching, and as always, you can find me on investingsuccess.ca and on my blog site, astrologicaltrading.wordpress.com, and you can even find me in the realm of social media on places like LinkedIn. Thanks for watching once again, and have a great day. Take care.